I've never been so stressed in my life, right? Imagine, right? Mixing engineer, talking to one of the best mixers in the world, literally.
Yes.
Like over 20 Grammys on his shoulders. You do a podcast with him and you forget I didn't forget to hit record. The podcast on Zoom corrupted, so we lost the first podcast that we did.
Oh my God. Hey guys, welcome back to the Mixed Opinions podcast. I am your host, MixedByJocelin, and we've got a great guest on today. But before we get into that, a big shout out to Audio Movers. They're giving you 1 month free of their plugin Listen To. All you have to do, hit the link below and use code MixedOpinions at checkout and you'll get 1 month free of their plugin. Shout out to those guys. But today on the podcast, we've got my fellow podcastee, Ed Stokes, on the podcast. And you can check out his channel just before we even get started, Ed Stokes Sounds Podcast on YouTube and all the good stuff. And it's fantastic. I've been on there if you want to check that one out. Let's go. How you doing, bro?
Thank you so much. I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. This is almost like part 2, really. But you're just on my show now.
I'll say before this, it feels weird being on this side.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a bit more relaxed being on the other side. You know, you can just answer the questions and chill.
No, I'm a bit nervous though.
No, don't be nervous. It's all good. But yeah, well, we said we were going to do this from the jump. Yeah. So, you know, paying it off. So before we get like really into it, you know, just to get going and just to give everyone a little bit of a background on who you are and what you do, I'd love it if you give them a bit about how you got into the industry and where you are today.
Yeah. So my name's Ed Stokes. I'm a mixer, producer, but predominantly mixing these days. But I started my career kind of, if we go all the way to childhood, my dad played guitar, not kind of properly, but just as like a hobby. And then I kind of got into music that way. And then I played guitar. I was always a musician before any of this production, mixing sort of stuff. And that's kind of where I learned like the music theory side of it, the harmony, the chords and all of that kind of stuff. And then after that, in 2014, I was still playing guitar, and I still do today. But I then went on to study contemporary music production at the Academy of Contemporary Music in Guildford, and I was there for 2 years. And
I went there actually. I went for a tour there actually.
Oh, okay. Did you?
Yeah, I don't think I got in. I think I actually applied. I don't think I got
Oh, really?
in. Nah. Oh, well.
Well, you know what? I mean, to be honest with you, the education side of music, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but no one's ever asked me for my degree.
I was going to say, just from the sound, from the jump, it seems like you're highly educated within music, even with the guitar and stuff. I take it you're trained, like you have, what do they call it? Grades in
I did grades in guitar, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I didn't go crazy. I did up to grade 5, and then it kind of got a bit too jazzy.
Okay,
for me.
fair enough.
But you know, as I studied there, and I've always kind of been into production. Well, I was always into production. Kind of skipped ahead a little bit, talking about the university side of it. But before that, the way that I actually got into this kind of career was, I wanted to play guitar and I needed artists to play guitar. You know, I did the whole singer-songwriter thing myself, but I wasn't a great singer. And I was always like, well, you know, I can work with lots of singers. And then I ended up playing guitar for lots of different singers. And then they needed recording and production. And that's when I kind of set up my home studio. And every weekend, every evening, I'd record different artists. And that's kind of how I built up a connection with a lot of these different musicians and artists. And even to this day, a lot of my work kind of stems from that, because with those guys, I was doing a lot of the whole YouTube cover thing. So I did a lot of YouTube covers and got to work with some great people on that. And that really kind of built my skills up. And then when I went to university, I basically did YouTube videos of popular songs every single week with everybody on the vocal course.
Okay.
And that's kind of where it kind of all started. And then I got really into the mixing side and making things sound good. So yeah.
So along with the mixing and and obviously training as a musical profession and as a sound engineer, you've clearly always had a touch and a foot in with the content side of things as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a big part of your career now as well. Obviously being a fellow podcaster and you have your own YouTube channel, stuff like that. You sell templates. I mean, it's almost like looking in a mirror. me and you.
It's great. It's good business, isn't it? To like, you've got to be like a one-man kind of band. I feel like these days everyone's kind of,
Yeah.
doing it. It's great.
And it's fun. And as long as you're passionate
Yeah.
about it and you're not just doing it just for the grind, like,
No,
that's
yeah.
that's what makes it interesting, and keeps it all going. Otherwise, you're just sitting in your room all day mixing records, which can get tedious quite quickly,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can be very isolating. So it's nice to kind of
that's
meet
really
people
cool.
and That's why. So I did all of that, and then fast forward so I was doing all of the YouTube stuff, and that kind of got me a lot of work, in the sense of connections and meeting people.
Mm.
And I was on Facebook one day, and it was like with ACM, which is short for Academy of Contemporary Music. They had like this kind of thing where you could get like work from like different opportunities and stuff like that. And my first kind of real touch kind of going into recording studios and understanding how studios work was someone put on a Facebook post, I need an assistant just to help out at Metrophonic Studios in Surrey. And
So
basically,
they had a Facebook group, and then other people would put on like job requests, basically.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it was like a community.
Does that platform still exist?
Do you know what? I haven't looked at that platform in years. I'm not sure if it does, because it was mainly for the people that are at the university at the time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
cool. I was just thinking maybe it was something that we could link on the episode.
Yeah.
If there was something.
I mean, I can have a look, and if it's still running, I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, please
link
do,
it. But yeah, so there was a mixer producer guy called Dom, who's incredible now. He's in a songwriting duo and does lots of cool productions and stuff. And he was an ex-student of ACM. So he actually put on there being like, oh, we need like an assistant, we need some help, someone young, someone that's kind of fresh, that, it wasn't full time. It was just like here, there and everywhere. And that's kind of where I really learned, they would record like horn sections, choirs, because they were doing a lot of stuff with X Factor, Americans Got Talent, all of the kind of TV shows and stuff. So I was just there, young, being at university, just watching the pros make these tracks, record it. And it was a real kind of eye-opener into that.
Okay. That kind of leads on to my next question, actually. That was going to be one of my questions, was because going through some of your credits and stuff like that, I saw a lot of TV-related credits, like The Voice, X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, things like that. And I was going to ask, like, are they connected? And like, how did you sort of like find yourself in that lane where you were working on those kind of projects? Because those kind of projects aren't things that just like fall on your lap sort of thing. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what? When I get asked that, I don't really have an answer for it. I guess I was just lucky in the sense of the thing I've always done, and I've always done it, and it's what I always say is I take every opportunity. So when an opportunity comes my way, I mean, we can go further into it, but as well as doing music, I edit a lot of audiobooks as well for all sorts of Audible, all of those kind of stuff as well.
I definitely am going to take you up on that, because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently as well, and something that I was like quite interested in figuring out how. I've listened to loads of audiobooks, and I'm like, where did this work even come from? So we're going to have a conversation about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I'm kind of the guy that, I have a passion for mixing. I love mixing. That's kind of, if that's like, I love it and I do it, but I always feel like when an opportunity comes your way, even if it's not necessarily, especially if you're young and, you haven't got those hit records yet and all of that, I feel like, in my opinion, I think it can sometimes be dangerous to just focus on one thing and cut all of the other opportunities out just because it's not quite what you imagined. And I've never been like, I've always been like, you know what? It's funny talking about audiobooks. I don't read books really. I'm not really into English literature. I got a C in English. Like, I'm not really into it at all. But I actually, funnily enough, got into that because of the person that I knew doing the shows, the Britain's Got Talent stuff. So it's all kind of connected. And so that's how that happened. But yeah, so from 2014 to 2016, during that time, that's when I was at university. I was going over to that studio and just there occasionally, just watching, helping out, that kind of stuff. And then in 2016, I was leaving university and I was like, right, what do I do now? I've got to pay bills, make some money. There's no help, the student.
Yeah.
That's all kind of run out. What do I do? So I went on online and I was just searching different studios in London, and this studio came up called Stokes Studios in London, which I don't own, but my surname's Ed Stokes, so people always think I own it.
Right.
But I don't. And so I emailed the guy there, and the guy's Andy Whitmore. He's a producer. He did all the Peter Andre stuff, Atomic Kit, and all those kind of artists. And I just emailed him and I said, look, got any jobs going? Just straight to the point. And he got back within 3 hours saying that his engineer had tonsillitis, so was off. He's got no one. He's basically stuck. Can you drop everything and are you around? Literally, like it was like today or tomorrow. It was pretty quick. And going back to taking every opportunity, I was like, well, okay, right. Doesn't matter if it's paid. I'm not worried about if it's paid or not. I'll just negotiate that later on. I'll just turn up, do the job. It was a vocal session with a singer. And he loved it. He loved what I did, and I'm still there today. Get a lot of work from him.
Oh wow,
that studio. So it kind of what it's like being self-employed. Is you just take things come up, that kind of stuff. And so there, I do a lot of stuff. Work on all sorts of different artists. Done musicals. Done education with when they're doing exams, and you hear the music in the exams and they record it. I've done that sort of stuff.
Where's the studio?
So the studio's in Ealing. It's called Stokes Studios in Ealing. Great studio. So I'm there as like a here and there kind of engineer, and I do a lot of mixing for them. So a lot of my mix work
comes
from them as well. So
oh wow. Yeah, that's exactly the point that I always try to put across when you say about the opportunities. And it's like, there's a lot of fear that comes with it as well, where you're like, oh, I turn up, what if I mess up? I'm not good, da, 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 da. And I feel like that's what holds a lot of people back. But the main thing is it's just going for it and doing it, and like it can when you look past all of the necessary embarrassment that might come from it if you make a mistake, there's only positives that you can really get out of it. And being embarrassed isn't really a negative either, because it doesn't affect you that much. So yeah, like that's why I always preach that, when I talk about it all the time. I think I even mentioned it on your podcast. My first opportunity, I wasn't really a trained engineer. I was still doing my college stuff, my HND, never done any professional engineering work. And I got asked, can I engineer a session? I just lied. And I said, yeah. So because I had the opportunity there, and I was like, I just have to just to go for it. Anyway, 10 years later, we're here. That was something that I didn't even think of a lane that I was going to go into. I was, bit like yourself when I first started, and was like singer-songwriter, playing guitar, doing jazz, all that stuff. And anyway, and it's progressed into this, career just like yourself. And I think that's just something that a lot of people should take away with, because this industry, there is no, especially when you're trying to be an engineer or a producer, even an artist, there's no clear path to doing it, so just scanning and seeing the doors that open for you and walking through them. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people can be blinded by that, and they don't even realize that there's an opportunity in front of them and they don't go for it. So I really do like that. And that's
so true. Yeah.
That's what's taking you up to today.
Yeah. So today my work, as I said, a lot of the mixes I do, I produce as well. I do a lot of production still. I find that, again, talking about opportunity, again, it depends on the artist. If it's, usually with obviously bigger artists, there's more money behind them. So obviously they can afford to have separate producer, separate mixer. But I find with a lot of the independent artists, some of them don't even know what mixing is. They don't know what mastering is. So I do see a lot of, as I said, my passion's mixing. It's what I love. But sometimes, I also like production. And if I can get mix work and get better at my craft by doing the production, then I'm not going to say no to production and only want the mix work. So it's, it's all a work in progress, I guess. But,
and I think that's far. I think that's a good way of working nowadays as well. And it's something that personally I'd hate to just do one thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, people know me for mixing; it's in the name. But I also love making music. I do make music for people. I do the podcast. You know what I mean? And it's exactly. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I like speaking to you. To be fair, because there's a lot of similarities in how
a lot in
work.
Common.
Exactly. Exactly. That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So coming into a bit about obviously more about your podcast and stuff. How did that
Yeah.
come about? And like, what made you want to start that? And how long really have you been doing it for?
Yeah, good question. So I've been doing it now for about a year. I think I've 22 episodes now. So I do it kind of a bit more than once a month, but once every 2 weeks kind of thing. Depends on schedule and stuff.
Yeah,
but,
I'm catching up.
Yeah.
I'm coming after you.
You'll be beating me soon. But to be honest with you, I was having a conversation with another engineer, and I remember I always love chatting about audio, chatting about plugins. Like, if I'm with you in a pub, let's say, we're going to be chatting about plugins.
Everyone's going to leave the table because they're going to be bored because we're just going to be talking shop all night, 100%.
Exactly. And so it just said to me, they're like, Ed, if you love talking about it so much, why don't you just talk about it but record it?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. And so I thought, you know what? Why not? I'm always learning, constantly learning. And actually, I feel like learning, there's a massive part of learning by talking to, I know it sounds obvious, but by talking to other mixers, you learn a lot just by conversation, I find.
Oh, mate, 110%. Since I started doing the podcast, I'm like all the time. I wish I had my phone on me because I'm recording on my phone because I'm like trying to like take notes and stuff whilst talking to him. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm recording this. Just go back and listen to it later. But like, 110% agree.
So
and even just like mindset and like things that bug you out, like speaking to Manon in one of my previous episodes, she's talking about not getting jobs and stuff like that. And to me, I'm like, bro, like if that's happening to her at her level, that's so reassuring for me at my level to know that, people struggle at all parts. Do you know what I mean? And I got a few calls from some friends as well, and they said the exact same thing, that like it's so reassuring. Do you know what I mean? To like know that and just get those kind of experiences from different levels and different positions in the industry.
Yeah, it's like education, isn't it? Just like talking, and you always try and better yourself. And if someone can say something, and you can just take that little bit of what they've said and implement that into your work, then that podcast is everything. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And as I say, I love geeking out. I love chatting about plugins, what new plugins are coming out, what different techniques people are using, and it's a great way. It's like a community together. I know there's a lot of communities out there, but for like yourself, you'll know as a feeling of kind of creating that community by you doing it, if that makes sense. It feels good. You feel like you're creating a team, and as I say, I don't do anything I don't enjoy really, so I enjoy it. So I thought, why not? And
you had a pretty special guest on recently.
Yes, I was very lucky.
How did that come about?
Instagram DM.
That's it. That is it.
Yeah, so Leslie Brathwaite. Yeah, he came on. It was unbelievable. It was a
really
good conversation.
Where you were face to face, right? Where was that? Where did you record it?
Yes. So
I was thinking, I'm watching. I was thinking, have you gone to France? Because he was doing the Mix with the Masters seminar.
Yeah. So here's a long story about that, which I beat myself up about what happened, but
okay.
So I've never been so stressed in my life, right? Imagine, right? Mixing engineer talking to one of the best mixers in the world, literally.
Yes.
Like over 20 Grammys on his shoulders. You do a podcast with him and you forget it. I didn't forget to hit record. The podcast on Zoom corrupted, so we lost the first podcast that we did.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was like, right. So we had this. So, well, let me backtrack a little bit. It started with I dropped him a DM, and I said, "Look, I love your work. I mean, you know who he is, so
of course,
obviously, incredible stuff." And I said, "Look, I've got this podcast. I don't know if you'd want to do it, but here's previous episodes." Sent him.
It's exactly how I do it. That's exactly how I do it. I literally DM. Here's some snippets. What do you think? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And he got back to me within like an hour, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll come on, no problem." And I was like, "Oh, amazing, fantastic!" So obviously he was quite busy, so we scheduled it for like 2 weeks later after that DM. I was so happy that he agreed to come on, because you never know when someone's super like that. You maybe they're too busy.
Yeah, but I think you don't. I feel like you underestimate just how passionate these guys are about it, and they really don't mind. You know what I mean? Some of the people that I've had on, I'm like, nah, I'm just shooting a shot in the dark here. And then they're like, yeah, I'm down. I'm like, what? No way.
Yeah. Well, it's a good feeling. It's like, you know, and it's great that those guys give back because, you know, they don't have to, but they do. Do you know what I mean? So it's a real pleasure to have those kind of people on. But yeah, so I sent him that DM. And then 2 weeks later, obviously he's based in the US, I'm UK. So we did it on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened, but we had a great conversation. And I got to know him. He got to know him. It was the first time. And he got to the end and I hit the end thing on Zoom. And I'm sure we put it on record because it did like the 3, 2, 1 record. And then when I looked at the file after, it was like 6 seconds long and just went black, the screen.
Oh.
And like, you know, like when you lose files, well, hopefully we don't anymore. But
oh my God.
I was like, I can't believe that I've just
Your stomach's dropped.
Yeah. So I messaged him. I said, look, I'm so sorry. I'm going to hold my hands up here. I don't know what's happened. I emailed Zoom. They couldn't sort it out. Ended up, I don't know what happened, but it was a corrupted file, right? And so
you're actually giving me anxiety just talking about this.
Yeah, is this recording?
I know
this
the
podcast?
feeling. Yeah, I'm like checking the record right now. Like it's bugging me out.
So I'll message him and I go, look, I'm so sorry. I mean, how embarrassing! Like,
yeah,
it's like you're
it is. It's stressful. Like,
and I say, Leslie, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to, you know, go around in circles. Look, the podcast is gone, right? And he messages me going, are you sure it's not just like finishing rendering or something? And I was like, oh, no, I don't think it is. I think it's gone. So I was like, okay, right. So I spoke to my wife. I said, my life is ruined. Like,
yeah, this is stress. Yeah.
Like, she's like, just calm down. She's like, just calm down. I was like, okay, fine. Anyway, so I messaged him. I said, look, Leslie, I'm not going to lie. It's gone. And he was like, okay, no problem. We'll just do it in person because I'm actually in London in October. And it will be even better in person. Just so like optimistic.
What an absolute G.
So, yeah. And I was just like, you know, because I thought he was, you know, going to be too busy, not wanting to do it, or he's already done it. So I didn't want to, you know, annoy him or anything. And he was like, honestly, the most loveliest person I've ever met, the most kind. And he was just said, absolutely no problem. And he was in London because he was going to, he was doing Mix with the Masters for a week. So he was coming to London first. And he had a few hours free. And I said, well, do you want to come down to Greystokes Studio, which is, as we previously mentioned, where I engineer sometimes. And he said, yeah. So I got him down.
I bet the owners were like, let's go. Sweet.
Yeah. So we just got him down. We had a great few hours, had a conversation, had a podcast conversation. You know, it was great. And then he went off and and then he actually was doing a workshop the following day at another studio and he just invited me to come to that. So I was like, amazing.
Well, these are the things, you know, that in my opinion, you know, that was meant to be. You know, that podcast was meant to have crashed and you get that opportunity to do it in person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Arguably the biggest episode you had today, disaster, and then it actually turns out to be even better than originally planned because you had the opportunity then just like what we were saying before, you know, it's just opportunity on opportunity. You had an opportunity and you're like, shit, I fucked up, and then you're like, something even better happens out of it, like way better. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I wouldn't want to relive that stress again.
No, and I know exactly the feeling. I know the feeling, like 100%. That's funny. That's really, really cool. And we'll link that episode down below with the rest of
I appreciate
stuff,
it.
so you can go and check that out. But that leads me on, and maybe this is it, to one of my next sort of like topics was studio fails. And I like this one. And I've been wanting to sort of like entwine this into the podcast for a while. But we, as you said, we all know the feeling of like losing files or something messing up. Like, what's your biggest studio fail? Like what's haunted your dreams since it happened? Because I know everyone has one.
I'm trying to think. I mean, one of the ones that is, well, not a recent one, but it was, I mixed a track for an artist called Luke Stefano, who's great. And I do a lot of his stuff. And it was a great mix, great song. It's out on Spotify. And I can't remember the name now, but I'll find it. We can link it or something.
Yeah, we'll link it.
And And about 2 years later, I mean, I'm always keeping my files safe. I've got backups. I've got different backups. And I had a Lacy drive, and I don't know what happened, but every time I plug it in, it doesn't work, the drive. So everything I had backed up. But at the time, I was only backing all of the mixes and all of the tracks up to this one drive. I wasn't doing a double backup, which I now do.
Right.
So I lost a load of stuff, and I thought, oh, it's okay. Like, you know, people may not come back for previous files. 2 years later, he's like, oh, by the way, we're going to re-release this track now under this, and, you know, we're going to add this. And he was like, oh, but can you just, you know, send me the stems, the drum stem and all of that? And I'm like,
no,
panicking. Bear in mind, you know, he's paid for the mix. We did the production. It was a massive track. And now he has to redo everything again because I can't deliver what he needed. And I just felt really awful. So that's kind of one that it kind of taught me a lesson about that.
On that note,
yeah,
a couple of things, like maybe I do this, maybe you could do it,
Yeah.
like where I have in my terms and conditions that I will hold your files up to 12 months, but it is your responsibility to collect the files once the project is finished. So if someone comes to the studio and records, like, really they should be taking the files, right? Because it's their work, like, not my responsibility. My responsibility is to record it. You know, I'm not Google Drive, I'm not a storage system for you, sort of thing. And the same with the mixes. Like, obviously, once I've finished the song, if on request, I'll deliver the mix stems, and it's their responsibility to hold that. And I actually keep files for like 3-4 years most of the time.
Yeah.
But like, on my terms and conditions, it's 12 months and that's it. And a drive, maybe you should, I don't know if you use these, but I use the Glyph drives. You know them?
I don't use them.
Glyph Studio. Oh, what is that? What happened? Are they the ones that? Is that the one that crashed?
I don't. I know. I was using Lacy, which are pretty good usually.
Yeah, no, I say I've had issues with Lacy, so I use Glyph, and I've got a bunch of them, like they're right in front of me. But my main drive that I have, like, for like now projects, like the year projects, is the Studio RAID, and it's 8 terabytes, but it's split into 4, so it backs up within the drive itself. So if the drive itself fails, it automatically has another copy of it inside the drive. So it's like a clone. It's like a clone inside the drive. So maybe something worth looking into, because I've never ever had any issues with Glyph whatsoever. They're like big things. You can't move them back. You can't put them in your rucksack and keep moving. Like, it's it's plugged in. It stays on your desk. But in terms of like,
I'm gonna have to do that.
And Glyph, if you listen to this, through that again. Send the sponsor over, man. But we have had those. Any other though?
Other fails have been like, I've done it before where I've recorded a vocal on, like, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but like one of these, like these ball.
Oh, the eye,
things.
Whatever it's called.
But another engineer's used it, and the mic's the wrong way round, or stuff like that. That's happened before.
No, that's terrible. I never even thought about that, to be fair. That's actually a proper possibility.
And I'm like, oh no, I need to check that now. So like every time, especially when I'm in London and I'm like at the studio, the first thing I do is take off the phone before I'm recording any vocals, because I've had, people have left things in Omni or Figure of it, like on someone.
Yeah, I've had those before. I've had those before where people have changed it. Like, I that's one of the reasons why I started using the 103, the Neumann, because it doesn't have like changeable settings. It's just what you get. And because my other one, the Sontronics one, had like all the different patterns and stuff, and I was like, there's too many times I'm coming in and it's been changed. So.
But that's the thing, with those eyeballs, they are great. But the danger is, if someone takes that blue thing off, changes it, doesn't change it back, puts it back on, then you start recording the vocals. I mean, you should hear it if it's, wrong, but
sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't. If you're recording all day, people make mistakes. Engineers aren't perfect. At any level. Obviously we do our best, but there's so much involved in recording. There's so many things, you know what I mean? Like, things do get slipped through the cracks, and people become complacent as well. Like with their setup, they don't expect it to be changed. So but that's a nightmare. I've had that as well, personally, like, where I've recorded sessions and I'm like, this whole fucking song has been recorded in Omni. Holy shit. Like, why can I sit here so much noise in this recording? I can hear his mate in the background clicking on his phone. Like, what the hell is going on? But That's fair.
I think the other thing as well is this is actually a really bad habit, and engineers shouldn't do this, but I feel like we're all guilty of this. I probably shouldn't say this, but like you've done it before where where you've got your phone, right, and you're recording and you're looking at your phone. Sometimes if, let's say, you're getting a message through and you're like doing like records in loops, I've had it before where it's a bit naughty, but it's like I'm recording someone's message, I need to respond, but I'm like, it's okay, I've left it on loop record. But suddenly it loops around, but it hasn't actually recorded. So the singer sang about 5 times while you're responding to a text, but it hasn't actually recorded. And you're like, oh, I thought I recorded all of that. So things like that, I did,
What DAW, what DAW do you use?
So I mainly use, for mixing, Pro Tools, but if I'm recording or production, Logic.
Okay, yeah.
So
I find Logic a bit faster when it comes to recording, to be fair. I think it's just because I'm just so used to it. I keep meaning to speak to Gaurav actually and see if he can help me get on one of these courses with Pro Tools, because I can use Pro Tools quite well, but it's the speed that gets me. So I just want to go on one of these like refreshers to like get all the like shortcuts like embedded in my brain, and start using it again properly, because I only really use it for like doing like Dolby mixes and stuff like that at the moment. Even though Logic, to be fair, I did one on Logic the other day and it was quite simple. A lot easier to set up than it is on Pro Tools, to be fair, because you don't have to be dealing with no IO settings or anything like that.
Oh yeah, that's a pain, that IO stuff.
Yeah, and it always goes wrong. There's always something and you're like, what is it? I don't know. And you got to be testing it out. But Logic seems to be all right, actually.
I love Logic. I've got nothing, I think the only reason why funnily enough, with that recording loop thing, while I was being naughty looking at the phone, which I shouldn't have done, hands up to that was actually a Logic. I don't know what I did, but I had it in loop, but I think I hit the space bar and record, but not record to begin with. So if you hit the space bar and record, it doesn't actually loop the record, but if you hit the R, it does.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it was something like that.
Because it comps, right?
It was comms, yes. I was just, I can't remember now exactly, but it was something like that. I'm so used to just hitting spacebar record, record, and
There is a setting, I can't remember what it's called, but there is a setting where you can set up so it's, every time it's playing, it is recording. It doesn't look like it's recording, but then you can press a shortcut and it brings up all of the recordings, because it's constantly recording in the background. You can do it with MIDI as well. The recording thing's kind of new though, but for MIDI it's been ages, because you just play, and then you can hit a button and it brings up everything that you previously tracked.
I should have a look at that then.
Yeah,
that's not an excuse to use your phone.
No,
don't use your phone while recording.
Of course not. But if you're in an 8-hour session, and someone's just trying to get like one line recorded for, you're on like the 28th take.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm just going to check this message and see what's going on. Because it's like, you're just looking at a screen like, you're trying to be encouraging.
And it's just doing a loop.
You feel like you got the take 20 takes ago. A like thing just popped up on my screen then.
I was just looking at that as well.
What's he doing it? What the hell is that? Well,
I thought you were doing that as some animation for the video.
No, I don't know what
you're
that
not
is.
doing?
No, I'm not doing it. I don't know. Someone's watching it and thinks it's great. I don't know. I don't know what that is. We're being watched, maybe.
Oh, that's all right.
I can't remember what I was saying now.
That's thrown
that
up
was
a little
weird.
bit.
Okay, you guys probably won't see that on the recording because I'm going to use this camera, but there was some weird thing happening. That's a joke. Off that topic a little bit, because we are perfect, but we do make mistakes. So that does happen, and hopefully to any engineers listening, you can sleep a bit easier knowing that everyone does make mistakes.
Yeah.
And artists, give your engineer a break. And so what's because obviously you make music as well, and even as engineers, like, it's important to stay in front of the curve, listen to new music, be inspired to keep improving your music. What sort of, at the moment, are you listening to? Like, what's on your playlist?
Do you know what? I listen to a lot of my favorite kind of music is country pop music. I'm really into so
Okay.
lately I've been listening to Dan and Shay's new album. I don't know if you know Dan and Shay.
I am so out of the loop when it comes to a lot of pop and especially country. It's two genres that I don't actually really listen to. Sometimes songs will come up and I'm like, wow, that is so soulful, and I'll play it on loop, but I don't tend to like dive too much into the genre.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to New Music Friday, just check out what new sounds are out, and stuff like that. And my wife is a songwriter and artist herself, so she's in a lot of that world. So she'll show me new songs. Like she showed me Tate McRae's new one the other day, which was cool as well. But for me personally, I think as a kid, as I say, I played acoustic guitar, and it was always my thing. Playing guitar for different artists, and I always loved country music, but then my favorite music as well was like Jack Johnson, Jason Mraz, so that kind of acoustic stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then as time has gone on, you got artists like Brett Young, Dan and Shay, so more of the country pop. Real country artists would probably say maybe it's not country, it's more country pop.
Yeah.
But,
you have to send me some so I can.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And the thing that I actually love about it is what it teaches you as well, especially that kind of Nashville kind of sound, is like the way that they stack harmonies and the way that they layer harmonies and the arrangement of that, like to make each individual harmony stand out within the context of the mix is quite interesting. A lot of automation, a lot of live instruments. So there tends to be a lot of kind of dynamics there that you have to kind of play around with.
Well, that's why some of the best mix engineers come out of Nashville, because obviously the technicality of the production that they have to mix is, it's a lot more extreme than, not to take anything away from it, but say like stuff that I work on more like the UK rap and stuff like that. It's an instrument, we mix the beat stems with the rap stems most of the time. Then, and the artists don't really want you to do anything crazy unless you're working with like a more like conscious rapper, like someone like Kendrick or someone like that wants you to be a little bit more inventive with your style. But a lot of the time it's nowhere near as complex as that, and then they polish it in a way that isn't even noticeable. Do you know what I mean? So it's like not a noticeable effect or use of automation, but you can tell that they've programmed everything, a lot. And they use
perfect.
They tend to use a lot of like outboard gear as well and stuff like in places like Nashville. Those engineers. I do a lot.
I mean, I do a mixture. I just did one the other day, an artist called Brooklyn White. He was kind of rap grime kind of stuff. I don't a lot more about that genre than me, because I know you're more into that kind of UK drill sort of stuff. But I mean, I get a mixture through, and I feel like a lot of the time it's more just the placement of levels. It's like, the beat being really forward, it kind of being pushed back. In country music, everything's kind of more layered. Guitars are driving it, so it's kind of knowing
the pockets of the genre,
the genre, and then everything else kind of falls into place. If you can mix rap, you could easily mix a country vocal. Do you know what I mean? As long as you use within the same kind of
and you do your research about the style and how it should sound. I mean, and it does happen sometimes. Like, I got an AMA piano record sent to me, and I'm like, there's no kick, and I've actually gone and got a kick and placed it in where the kick is, but it's very lackluster. Give the song more drive. And then one of my assistants came in and was like, nah, bro, like AMA piano it's not driven by kick, it's driven by the log drum. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Like, and luckily that was cool, because I should have done my research and listened to a load of AMA piano and realized, no, it's not a kick driven thing. But obviously me coming from drill, UK rap, all this stuff, like it kicks like, always got to be like banging your head off. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kicking off everything. So it's
good though that you're versatile, because I always say this to like younger engineers or people starting out. I think if you focus on one genre, like, what it's like trying to do music for a job. It's not the easiest of jobs. So you do have to kind of,
and it can drive you mad as well. You might love that genre, but like you want to start working on other stuff. And as you get older, your taste changes as well, and you don't want to be pinpointed. Like for a long time, like coming into lockdown and the back of lockdown, like all I was getting was drill. And don't get me wrong, like I love mixing drill because I love the energy and the aggression from it. But like I was like desperate to start mixing like other sounds and songs again. Luckily, like things have started to come in. I started working with a lot more pop artists and things like that. But like, you know, it is one of those things. So making sure you are being, you know, and even to the point where, like, if you found yourself in a lane, like, don't feel like you're good enough to say you'll do a mix for free if it's a different genre, because, you know, people might not trust you. You haven't got the portfolio for it. Because if someone wants a song mix, they're going to ask for your portfolio. And if you don't have anything there, then you're like, yeah, I haven't got anything. So, like, just do it for free. They'll give you the work. Do you know what I mean? And then at least you have something under your catalog and you can start working in that mix. You know what I mean? You might gain a client out of it. So
that's the thing. You never know what's going to gain you a client. You just never know. And
exactly.
I think that
Yeah.
got to keep them.
That's it. That's what I was about to release a YouTube video on it. Actually, it was one of the comments on my YouTube. One of my tutorials was, "Oh, can you do a video on like how to like get clients and keep clients?" And that was one of the things where I was like, you know, no, don't be afraid to do a mix for free, especially if you're starting off, because the portfolio is one of the most important things. And then, you know, just being like transparent and having like high integrity when it comes to your business ethics and how you speak to your clients. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's because if you're like being shady and like, like, it's the fastest way, it's never going to end well, and you're always going to end up with problems because you're dealing with people's art and they care about it a lot, so they're going to run it under a microscope, you know.
I think as well, like the business side, it's funny when I'm doing podcasts myself, it's kind of a question that I ask about. A lot of people always ask about, like you said, about the comments that, you know, how do you get work and the business side of it. And I think organization, being organized and responding to people and being a nice person goes a lot more than being good at mixing. You know, you can be good at mixing, but if you're not great to work with,
being reliable, reliable over everything, reliable, transparent, and having integrity, you know, that's going to get you work. And, you know, above your mixing skills, obviously being a good mixer does count for something, but especially at the beginning, and then making sure you maintain that as you get bigger and better clients is essential, because it's a story I hear all the time. I'll get a new client come through and I'll be like, oh, how come you're not working with your old engineer? And I do like to ask that, because sometimes it can highlight whether or not this is going to be a good client for me. Do you know what
Interesting.
I mean? And, you know, but most of the time it's like, I just can't get hold of them anymore. They're doing this, they're focusing on this artist or whatever it is, which can be fine if that's, you know, the case, but not dealing with that with your previous client with integrity and just being transparent with them. Maybe just say, look, I'm too busy at the moment, I'm focusing on this. It's going to go a lot more than just not responding or taking ages to deliver a mix. Do you know what I mean? So like, and that's what happens a lot. And that whenever I get my assistants in, that's one of the main things I say to them is like, this business, if you're working with me and for me, the integrity is top of the pile. It's not the work, it's not getting it out, it's the integrity and keeping that. And, you know, it's something that I try to push forward. People use it against me because they say that, you know, oh, that's how I like to run, and they'll try to like attack me on that or whatever. But like, again, I know that that's not the right client for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So fair enough.
I think as well, like it's so easy as well. Like, I mean, I still deal with this in the sense of, you know, you're running. I think being a mixer in 2023 is you're running a business in the sense of, you know, you are your own business in a way. Like you know, everything when it comes down to branding.
110%.
And I think one thing that I think clients, from my experience, really respect is, don't promise that if you're recording them, let's say, don't promise maybe a mix the following day. If they ask you, can they have the mix ASAP? Be realistic within yourself and what date you give them, because I've always been the one, as I say yes to opportunities, but I've always been like, yeah, I'll get your mix done tomorrow. Yeah, and then before I know it, I've told 8 people that I'm going to get all their mixes done tomorrow. Well, you know that's not going to happen. So I think planning ahead.
And if it does happen, it's going to be subpar work.
Exactly. So now I'm just like, if you want to work with me, the mix is going to be delivered on this date, and that's it. Because I know that you've got to kind of respect yourself as well, in the sense of, well, you know, I've got a family. I don't have time to work till 3 a.m. in the morning. And let's be honest, the mixes is not going to be good if you're doing that. So I think knowing how to have that conversation with whoever you're working with does go a long way. So, you know.
Yeah. And you know, it's even like, because I don't even list it as a thing. I see a lot of people list rush mixes like on their like list of services that they offer, or like priority mixes or stuff. Like, it is something that I will do, but it's not something that I promote to do, and it's only if the artist really needs it. And it will be a case of like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this, but you're going to have to compensate me for my time, right? So it's going to cost you a lot more, because I'm going to have to sacrifice a lot to be able to do this. And again, I'm going to have to now message clients and say, I'm going to have to move this, and potentially tarnish my integrity with that client. So it really does depend, and it has to be a job that's like, it can't just be any job and they just really want it now. Like, it has to be like a job that, okay, cool, you've done the music video and like the mix has been wrong from another engineer and you're really in a pickle and it's got to come out like now. Then okay, fine. Do you know what I mean?
Are of course occasions where you will.
We'll do it. And especially if they're throwing like a couple of extra zeros at you, then you're like, fair enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'll stay up till 3 a.m.
I can reschedule dinner tonight. Like, that's okay. But doing it in the right way and doing it like, you know, and not just saying yes is really, it is really important, you know. And it's even like to the point where with the integrity thing, like, I always say to my clients about, like, because in my industry you get a lot of 2-track stuff. Like,
it's quite hard. That I was dealing with that the other day.
YouTube rips. Exactly. And they don't realize, they think, oh, I'm making your job easier because you don't have all the beat stems. You're not.
Not at all.
Because I still have to deliver a project that sounds good. So like, you know, I always will put out to them, like, really and truthfully, like, if you want your project to sound the best, you should get the beat stems. And to the point now where I will actually like not do the project if the 2-track isn't good enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, I won't just do it for the sake of it. We're getting paid, because you've got to look after your sort of in your work and how it sounds in your portfolio. Do you know what I mean? And as soon as you do the work, it comes out under your name, you know, so you're connected with that forever. So
one thing I actually find about the 2-tracks, I don't know if you've had this, but sometimes I've had it before, where an artist will get the MP3 off YouTube. They shouldn't, but they get the MP3 off YouTube. They then do the rap or the singing to the MP3, and then they buy the WAV, and then they put the WAV in. But I've noticed the WAV is sometimes out of time with what they recorded the MP3 to. I don't know whether that's
because of YouTube. YouTube has a it's like a buffer, and most of the beats, if they're made on FL, they have a buffer. So if you zoom in to the very beginning, most of the time that you'll find that the WAV is in front of the MP3.
It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you drag in, so this is why when I do the recordings, before I even put anything else in, I'll drag in and look right at 0 on my timeline and see if there's a gap there. And 9 out of 10 times there's a gap. I'll trim that and then pull the whole project forward so it starts where it should start, and then everything else is gridded after that. Sometimes you need to do some adjustment to the BPM, but like,
I'll tell them, because they did the vocals and they just sent me the whole logic.
Yeah, you can fix it from your from your side, and if you try and tell them, they're not going to pay attention to it.
No,
they're not. They're not going to know what you're talking about. They're not going to know what you're talking about. But like, that is an issue, because then obviously your project's like dragging slightly out of time.
And just solve it. Buy the WAV before you start recording.
But they're not going to do. Yeah, they're not going to do that though. And to be fair to them, like, they might record like 8 songs and only pick like 3.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because they're just testing out. So but
I'll do that my end then. Next time
it will be that beginning of the audio. Yeah,
I ended up having to shift the vocals. I did the opposite in a way, instead of moving
but that
track.
Can be an issue. That you're more likely to cause yourself more issues doing that than just moving the one file. So zoom in, cut the beginning, because I guarantee you it's just a dead bit of space that's either created from YouTube or FL. It seems to have, especially FL on a Mac. I don't know if it has it the same anymore, but because it's native to Windows, it had this like extra buffer that it would have to do to change it, and it would create a small little lag at the beginning of the file.
Okay,
you can see
interesting.
It. But find that and then trim, and then just Command A and move the whole project over, and then your WAV should be in time, because the WAV because it's not being converted, should be in time. So unless it's an FL beat, which again, it will have that little space at the beginning. Yeah, just something to Yeah,
No, this is why I love doing podcasts, right? I just learned something.
Yeah, exactly. But I know this because I deal with so many of it.
Yeah.
So, and I always have done. But and it's something that's like, I'm like, why are these cuts not sounding right? I'm doing all these wicked cuts and they're off. Like the kick's not coming in, and then I look, and I'm like, because the very beginning of the audio is
interesting.
Yeah,
I'll remember that next time.
Talking to technical stuff, and and doors and stuff like that. What at the moment for the viewers? Give them a bit of sauce. What's your 3 favorite plugins that you're using?
My 3, so 3 of my favorites. Waves Factory Spectre.
Okay.
Use it on everything. It's my favorite thing at the moment.
Tell people a little bit about what it does. And
so it's like it acts as like an EQ, but it's boosting saturation. So you can have like tape mode, tube mode, and you can boost. So you've got frequencies on there, but it's your boosting saturation of that frequency instead of just boosting the volume of the frequency. If that makes
adding
sense.
a bit of character.
Adding character, yeah. So I use it on like perfect example. A lot of people boost 1K on a kick drum to get that kind of punch. Yeah. What I do so I kind of use that mentality, but I use Wave Factory Spectre to do that. And it kind of gives me a bit more of a grit. It gives me a bit more of a tone and more of a character by just doing the same move that I was going to do on the EQ, but on this plugin. Okay. So that's like my favorite at the moment. Standard ones, FabFilter Pro Q3. Use that day to day.
That's everyone.
I love it.
That's in everyone's list. If you if you're watching this and you're not using the Pro Q3, Jesus. Like, do yourself a favor, man. It's just the best. It's the best.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever. I mean, I use so many. I mean, my other favorites. I mean, I have favorites for different things. Like, I've been loving the Plug-in Alliance AMIC 250 on the mix bus.
Okay,
really nice.
I don't think I've got all the Plug-in Alliance stuff. I don't think I've used that one yet. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, AMIC 250. I mean, I just do the standard 2 dB boost at 50, 2 dB boost at 25K, both on shelves. Smiley face, happy days.
Okay, just giving a little bit of like low end and top end presence.
Low end, top end. It just kind of does it. I tell you what,
is it like a mastering EQ?
Mastering EQ, but yeah, I use it on the mix bus and I mix into that. So what I do is I'll have the mix, balance the mix out how I like it, and then I'll shove that on there with an SSL. G compressor just to do it, and then I'll go into
finish the mix with those on, like processing
with those on, and then a lot of times I am asked to sometimes master tracks. Prefer kind of not to, but sometimes I have to. So I'll then go on from that where I use ozone, clippers, limiters, that sort of stuff for mastering.
Well, the maximizer.
Yes, yeah. I use the maximizer, and I use the T-Rex clipper. So I do T-Rex clipper. Then I'll go into ozone, do a little bit of dynamic EQ.
Have you used the clipper? Have you used the clipper on the new maximizer? Do you have the
I have actually, yeah.
I quite like it, you know.
I prefer it on the low mode instead of medium. There's low, medium, high.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the high mode. The low mode kind of seemed to do it right.
Yeah.
And the other one, actually, I know it's a fourth one, but one that I would recommend, which is like which I actually learned watching a YouTube video of is it Doja Cat's engineer Jesse Ray Ernst? I think I've got his...
Yeah.
He was talking about the TG mastering by Waves, their plugin, and there's a stereo spreader on there on the last part of the plugin, and you just put it on any mix, whack it out 2, you suddenly got like this 3D image of your mix. It's really unbelievable. So I use that after the SSL as well. So
okay.
That's my go-to at the moment, but yeah.
Right, well, you've heard it here. There's some good ones. That's some ones for me as well, to be fair. I'm going to check some of them out. You know, have you been using the black box on your...
Yes, I used to use that on my mix bus and my drum bus, but yeah, I use Spectre now.
Right, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess so, because you can be a bit more like precise with where you want it to react. The black box is sort of like more of an overarching thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But
there's so many plugins, isn't there? We could be here all day.
yeah, that's it. Well, it's just annoying that they're all subscription service.
Oh, tell me about it.
I always have issues. Even with Spark, it's like it doesn't. I'll open a project and for whatever reason I need to reactivate it, and it's like, why is this happening? Like, and it's like, you know, it might just be one plugin or one sound and I might not have heard it or noticed it. And then I'm like getting a note back saying, oh, this sounds different. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking because the bloody thing's not on or whatever. Any Spark
It's
guys
annoying.
listening, please fix that. It's a mad annoying bug. But
Just the whole subscription thing. I get it from a business
and it helps,
perspective.
and it does help as well, because you can get access to all the plugins straight away for like a small cost. But Plugin Alliance, they do it the best, I think. Because
I was going to say, everyone starting out always goes for Waves, and I love Waves, and I do use Waves a lot. That TG mastering is Waves. But if I had to say to you, what plugin bundle? If I could only have one plugin bundle, 100% Plugin Alliance.
Yeah, because they've got the most diverse plugin set,
and they're good.
They are really good, and as well, their business model is slightly better because they allow you to purchase 3 of them from the subscription at the end of every year. So, like, if for whatever reason you decide to not carry on with the subscription, you can still have those 3 plugins that you've chosen, which I think is a really good business model at the end of the day. So it's more like you're slowly buying everything rather than just renting.
But you've got everything to your hand when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, exactly that. And so that I do appreciate that. But obviously, you're never going to end the subscription because they're always going to be bringing new ones out. I do, however, like Spark though, because Spark are being really consistent with their new plugins. Spark is UAD, for anyone that doesn't know, and they keep bringing out new ones. Like every month, there's like a new plugin, and you're like, "Oh, that plugin is bad boy!" Like, and it's it's one that you've wanted. You know what I mean? Like they're bringing out the Fairchild compressors and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Out of interest, what are you using at the moment? Then, what are your plugins of choice? You got any new ones or?
I started using on the Plugin Alliance stuff, what's it called now? I can't remember. I can't remember the beginning, but it's basically a transient designer thing.
Oh, okay.
Transient. It's not called Master. That's the Native Instruments one. But I can't. I'll find it and let you know. But that it's the Plugin Alliance one of them. That's been really useful. I've been using that a lot because I was doing a lot of like big stacked choruses and stuff, and like obviously I'm losing some of the clarity with the vocal because there's so many layers, but I want it to sound massive and big, and I was using that on like the bus just to like narrow everything in on the back, leaving the main off so it has its own like dynamics and clearness and stuff. And then but that was just really helping like clear everything up from like all of the stacks, because there was like 80 stacks or something like that. Like it was mad.
It's a lot.
Yeah. But it sounds awesome. The tune's coming out in a few weeks. It's on a Blues new project. But since I've done it on that, I've been using that quite a lot, especially on like hats, things like that, just tightening things up. And what else have I been using that I've been enjoying recently? Devon from Help Me Devon called me out and was like, just try the maximizer, because I was using the L2 limiter for a long time, and he was like, no bro, trust me, just try it. And I did try it, and you know what, I am really, really liking it. I've found my settings that I like on it, especially because they have a bunch of different types of limiters as well that you can pick from. Normally using the modern one because I find it quite open and clear. But I find the Learn LUFS very useful, especially when I'm doing like multiple tracks, because I can make sure that they're all coming out at that same LUFS, and I don't have to spend ages finding it via a meter and tweaking the threshold. It learns
like AI mixing.
Yeah, well, it's great. It just sets the threshold, so it doesn't mess up any of what I'm doing. It just finds that threshold, and then I can tweak the rest of the parameters myself to get it to sound good around that LUFS. So I do find that, because that saves me a lot of time, because you get a lot of guys and they're like, we need it at this particular -9, -10, whatever they want it at, and it's like, okay, cool, I can get all of them at that point and then make them sound individually where they need to be without messing up the perceived loudness. Do you know what I mean? So that one's been really good. But I don't know, there's all so many. There is so many, but I mean, most of the time I do always find myself just going back to the same sort of plugins a lot of the time, on tried and tested, compressors, and pretty much you either using this Pro C2 or that thing's happening again. Or
another thumbs up
someone
for
liked that.
plugin.
Someone liked it. You know what I mean? FabFoot are listening.
Is this link closed?
It should be closed. Yeah, it only says it's me and you in it. I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just funny.
It's weird unless my co-host is like logged in and just watching. Yeah, I don't know. But
maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, and he's just liking stuff. But yeah, the Pro C2 and like the 1176, the UAD one.
Classic.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're just on everything, and I do use a lot of the black box at the moment.
What are you using it on?
So either I'm putting it on, like sometimes I'm putting it on vocals, like direct on vocals, especially like UK rap and stuff. I want a bit of aggression, and I do like their like high shelf that they put on there, like the shine.
Is that as a parallel you're using that, or are you just literally?
It really does depend. It really does depend on what I'm trying to achieve. But yeah, like sometimes I just really want the gritty sound. I'll just slap it straight on the top and just tweak the dials to where I want it to be. But a lot of the time it is parallel. And I'll run it on a bus rather than use their own parallel system.
Oh yeah, the mixed. I know what you mean.
Yeah, because I like to. If I'm doing it 9 out of 10 times, I'm probably going to be running other channels into it as well. I think. Yeah, that's like. Instead of the I'm using the Analog Obsession version of the SSL mix comp, the G comp. I don't know if you know that. Have you heard of Analog Obsession?
No,
mate. He is the guy. He's the guy.
Analog Obsession is a plugin.
Analog Obsession is the company,
right?
And
I'm going to write this down.
Yeah. He's this guy from Turkey, and he just makes emulations of the best, like the best hardware bits of gear, but he releases them for free. He gives them out for free. And like the SSL like G comp is sick. I use that on all the things. And he's got loads. EQs, channel strips.
It's all free.
Yeah, he has the option of like, you know, if you want to support him, it's like £5 Patreon a month.
Yeah.
If you just rate his work. But if you go on his website, you can download all of them for free. He makes all of them for free. Like, it's sick. I love it.
I'm going to stop all my subscriptions now.
Yeah, well,
make some money.
Obviously, he doesn't do like everything, but he's been doing it quite a while now, and he has a lot of plugins on.
But you don't need everything though, do you? I mean, you know, I look at my plugin list and I use about 5.
Yeah, to be fair, if you wanted to do you could do a whole mix with all of his plugins. Like, he has something for everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, maybe not reverbs and delays. I'm not sure, but I might even be wrong. But yeah, he's really, really cool guy. Analog Obsessions, guy from Turkey. I've spoken to him. I wanted him on the podcast, but he doesn't speak very good English, so we just did like a written question and answer thing that I put on my Instagram at the beginning of the year. But yeah, check him out. And if any of you guys are watching and you want some free sauce, check out Analog Obsession. And if you do like him, subscribe to his Patreon, because he's done a lot for the industry, especially for anyone that's, you know, trying to just get that free plugin connect, you know. So yeah, really good guy.
I'm going straight on there.
Honestly, do check him out. I really do like him. And like, you know, I do my course, my 8-week course, and I use a lot of his plugins on there because it's accessible for them to use it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily know the legality behind it. I know they're not illegal to own and buy because he's giving them for you for free. But he has to change the name of everything, and it has to be like an inspired by thing, because it's not like, you know what I mean? And he has to change the look of stuff. But you can look at something and be like straight away, oh, that's a Rupert Neve emulation. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just like all the other plugins do. It's very rare. So it's like UAD will get like the official license, and then everyone else has to do like a kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, and enough about plugins, because again, as I said, we can talk about it. Yeah, we can talk about it for hours. One of the things that I want to speak to you about, again, I'm quite interested in this because, as we've said a few times on the episode, I feel a lot of parallels in our careers, and like the positions that we're putting ourselves in the industry. Where do you find yourself in 5 years' time? Like, what's the goal? Where's Ed Stokes going to be in 5 years?
So, 5 years' time, I'd love to be mixing hit records, of course. But you know, look, I love what I do. I always say it's just a work in progress. So 5 years time, if I'm still mixing music, being able to support my family, doing what I love, then I'm cool with that. And obviously I would love to have the major success, and I'm a big believer that over time, got to learn the craft, and over time things always work out what's meant to be. And then recently this year, I've created this company called STOKES Sounds, and that's where we were speaking about the podcast. And on there, I have vocal presets, podcast write-up notes, and kind of the educational side of mixing and production as well. So I'm developing that at the moment. So yeah, in 5 years' time, if that takes off and mixing takes off to where my goals, then that's kind of where I see it going if I keep doing what I'm doing.
Amazing.
It's a music industry. You never know, do you?
Very. I mean, as I said, very similar to my own sort of career path, and that's why I like chatting with you. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to have you on, so that's really cool, man.
I'm a big believer. If you work at it, things just work out.
100%. Consistency.
I kind of do believe
consistency is key. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
And just having a genuine passion for it, because it's very clear. Like talking to you, I and again see a lot of myself in it, is that you have a genuine love and genuine passion for it. Like you wouldn't want to take the time to go and go on a podcast and talk about, or even deliver a podcast, if you didn't really love it and you didn't really care for it. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that you do that, similar to why I do it, is it's about giving to the rest of the community, and giving those stories, and just genuine passion for it, because it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a clock in and clock out, forget about it sort of job. It's your life. It's your passion. So
just is what it is, I guess. You just got
you just keep moving. Take all the stresses of all the highs, all the lows. If you had the opportunity, and I ask this at the end of most of the podcasts, if you had the opportunity to speak to your younger self, what advice would you give him, knowing what you know now?
To not stress so much about finding work, and just do great work and let it. I know that sounds like you got bills to pay. I think when I first started my career, I was always trying to get to B without doing A. Does that make sorry, the other way around? I've said that completely wrong, but trying to
get to B without doing A is right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I think I think to just chill out a bit and not stress as much. I remember I went self-employed, coming up fully self-employed, doing this full time for the last 6 years now. And I remember the first 2 years I was like stressing, being like, I need to find work, I need to get this. And I think I look back and I go, I made sure I had enough clients that I could afford my monthly bills. I don't need to be traveling first class. Not that I do now, but I don't need to be traveling first class doing all of this fancy stuff. You got to build up, you just got to enjoy the process more instead of just focusing on the goal. I know that was a really long-winded way of saying it, but I think
I get it though, and it is
chill out a bit.
It could be one of those things where it's like there's so many different types, there's so many different ways of answering that question. But I definitely agree with you, and it's something that I think a lot of people can take away.
It's stressful
away from.
Doing music. I think one thing I will say, a lot of people define kind of success, especially in our world, by credits and working with major artists, and that is fantastic. But I think in the way the music world is, if you can do what you love, have a passion for it, whether it's mixing, production, recording, whatever it is, and you can live full time. Doesn't matter if you have the major credits, you are successful in the career that you're doing. And then if it's meant to be, it will happen. You'll get that hit record. I think if you view it more like that, you'll have an easier time doing
and
this
the people that you'll be working with will notify that, and they're the kind of people that end up doing great things, because they just want people that just want to be there. They're not trying to be there, they just want to be there. And they're the people that end up taking your career to the next level, because unfortunately our careers are sort of reliant on other people's success in terms of like moving forward. Is if you are talking about credits and big names and Grammys and plaques and stuff, but like those people want people that care
Yeah.
about it, not people that are just trying, to socially step their way up the ladder. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, really good.
And you got to be ready for it as well. You know, if you get put into a room with, I was chatting to Leslie last week. If you're in a room with Beyonce, you got to be ready. You got to have done all that. It can be quite
exactly,
demanding.
and that can take time.
Yeah.
And it all just depends on how much you want it, really.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. So a similar question, but I do like to wrap it up just in case there's some slight differences in what in your advice. But what would you give? What advice would you give to the guys coming up into the space now? And how to sort of just like yourself, like you're saying, build a career for yourself, independency, and working for yourself and running a business and doing all of that whilst doing something that you care about and you love.
So there's two things. One is a game changer in my business workflow, which is using a website called FilePass. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but FilePass is basically where you deliver mixes. The client can hear it, they can stream it high fidelity. There's no issues with that at all, but they can't download it unless they pay for it. So that's kind of one thing that has kind of, from kind of my experience, that has helped me.
What's that website called again?
It's called FilePass, filepass.com. It's the best thing I've implemented into my mixing workflow. Client can listen to the mix, they can leave timestamps, revisions, but they can't download it unless they pay.
Okay.
So for me, that's the best thing. And the other advice, so that would be an advice, is having a good business model for your career that, you don't want to be worrying about people paying you if you're trying to mix a record. But unfortunately, we've all got bills to pay. So
another website on that can help, that is a brilliant service, is engineers.com.
Yes, I use that as well.
Yeah, so they're a similar platform, and they provide a similar service and can really, when you're getting started, take all that stress off of your shoulders. So, engineers, let's go.
Yeah, it's a great platform. I do love it. And the other thing was, what was it? Sorry, my mind was all over then. That was it. Do great. Going back to the whole credit thing. What was the question again about experience? What is from my experience?
How advice that you can give to help the
advice.
Future of engineers.
Yeah, so the first one was have a good business model to implement your work. And the second one, which I think is actually the most important, is it doesn't matter if you're working with a person that does music for a hobby or you're working with an A-list artist. Put the same amount of effort into both. I couldn't agree more.
100%.
A lot of people have an attitude of, it's only going to get 100 streams, whatever. Or, it's just a money job. Quickly do it. Get a few £100 quick. Unfortunately, it may work, but sometimes the people that you may not have cared about have done pretty well. So I think don't they say don't judge a book by its cover. Just because someone is doing music for a hobby doesn't mean they can't have a Grammy 5 years later. You just never know.
And I would say as important as that is, whatever comes out of your studio is a representation of you. So your mix should always be as good as your last mix, if not better. So
100%.
And it doesn't matter who the client is, it's all there and it's all going to be documented. So you need to make sure that everything is solid as fuck.
Yeah, and great work leads to great opportunities, leads to great things. So, that'd be my advice.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Helps.
That's brilliant. We're going to have to wrap it up there because as business owners, I've got a session. I'm sure you've got work to do as well. But Ed, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
All of Ed's links below. You can send me whatever you want me to link below to show off. Especially his podcast, stuff like that. Check that out, because if you're listening to this, you'll like Ed's, I promise you. And you've been listening to the Mixed Opinions podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe if you've got this far, and I'll catch you in the next one. Safe.